liberty, and justice for all.
Mayor York, would you lead us in prayer?
Thank you, Lord, for this day. Thank you for the opportunity that we can serve our community. I pray that you keep your hand on us. And as the shootings are going around our state and in our hometown, I pray that you keep us in the palm of your hand. Help us make good business decisions. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Okay, let's have a roll call, please.
Mike Duffy.
Present.
Jeff Hancock.
Present.
Jerry Walden.
Present.
Aaron Dickens.
Here.
Mark Hover.
Here.
Lynn Purdue.
Present.
Brett Steckenpall.
Here. Approval of the minutes of the previous meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve minutes of the previous meeting.
Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Hearing no discussion, roll call vote, please.
Mike Duffy.
Aye.
Jeff Hancock.
Aye.
Jerry Walden.
Aye.
Aaron Dickens.
Abstain.
Mark Hover.
Aye.
Lynn Purdue.
Abstain.
Brett Steckenpall.
Aye. Okay, do we have anything, any additions to the agenda? One thing I know we want to talk about is the intersections there on Indiana Avenue, so we'll just add that to the agenda so we can talk about it. Otherwise, I would move we approve the agenda with the addition.
I'll second
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any objection to that? Hearing none, it's approved. Now we're at a time for public comment. We have no special presentations. So if anybody would like to comment on anything on the agenda, please come forward and state your name and address.
Hi, I've been here once before. My name is Mark Burrell. Most people around town don't need somebody as hair most. It was brought to my attention that you plan to pass an ordinance to where I can only park 2 vehicles on the street. Is that true?
It is true that any citizen can only park 2 vehicles on the street.
I collect cars. And while I do own the 2 vacant lots next door to my house, I want to have those lots paid before I start parking there. Because parking vehicles in grass and on gravel and dirt and stuff like that, it promotes rust. And I didn't get a chance to read the minutes from the meeting after the one I appeared in before where this came up. But from what I can gather, it has to do with me kind of hogging parking spaces, I think. I don't know, I'm only speculating. But the spaces that I have 3 cars parked in,
Well, it's not only you. There are some other parking situations around town
I understand
also.
that.
So it's not single anyone.
I understand. But where I have 3 cars parked, three out of the 4 cars that I have parked on the west side of the street were in spaces no one was using. And for some reason, one of the neighbors feel like I shouldn't be able to park on the west side of the street, and she has all of her vehicles parked in front of my property. Because I'm not the only one that has multiple vehicles on the block that park on the street. She does as well. And this would have that ordinance would have a very negative impact on me because of the types of vehicles that I own. They're mostly antiques and classics. I do have a couple of what I call old bones. I got a 99 Nissan Pathfinder. It can stay or go. And I got an 01 Monte Carlo. All the rest of the cars I own are special interest cars. Literally all of them. So it would be to my advantage to be able to continue to park them on the street where the road is paved to help preserve them.
Is there any way that you could find someone that has a garage or a parking lot or, I know a lot of people that collect vehicles. So I mean, that's nothing new for us. So there's a lot of people that collect cars, but they make arrangements to have them
Well,
somewhere special.
I'm in the process of preparing the property next door for that. And that's what my plan is to store them there, but that lot's not prepared for that at this time. And I don't know, maybe would it be fair, since I own all 3 of those lots, should I be able to park 2 cars in front?
Gotta have a house on. You gotta have a resident. Gotta have
That's
a resident.
who's living there.
Yeah, you gotta have a
Nobody's
resident.
living on the lot.
Nobody's living on the lot.
Right. I'm asking because I don't know. I don't know what the ordinances are. But that would have a very negative influence on me at this time.
Is there still a garage on the east side of that?
That's actually a house. I don't know if it was a garage at one time and somebody converted it to a house, but it's actually a house. It has a furnace, I believe, it has a bathroom, a kitchen, those, like that kind of stuff in it.
The meeting that you weren't here, there were some neighbors that came in and until we get this ordinance passed, and, you know, our wish is that you work it out with your neighbors. And my first train of thought is it would be convenient if you could park on your side, on the east side of the street, and they live on the west side of the street, they can park on the west side of the street.
We've tried that. I mean, even one of the other neighbors tried to mediate. She pretty much told him to mind his own business.
Well,
That is theoretically what I would like to see happen. And what she told me was she can't park two vehicles in front of her house. And for some strange reason, she feels like she also needs 2 parking spaces in the house south of her.
Okay. Is there any way that you could get part of your property gravel before you even put asphalt on? I mean, that would help this situation tremendously. Off of the, get your vehicles off the road, on the property, but I understand what you're saying about grass.
Okay.
But could you get it gravel to where you could park them?
Gravel is a little better, but not much. I got a 74 Volkswagen Beetle sitting in the garage now that I'm in the process of finishing the repairs on. And when I bought it about 6 or 7 years ago, it had all new floor plans in it. They're rusted out from it sitting over gravel.
You know, I might have misspoke. Kenny, is there an ordinance of being able to put a parking lot on residential? I may be saying something I shouldn't even be saying. Is there?
I think he's talking about an empty lot.
Could he pave an empty lot?
Yeah.
Park
Turn
cars?
it into a parking lot?
Yeah.
Is it gotta get a certain?
Yeah, you can pave it.
I think you can make a driveway anyway.
Yeah, you'd have to get a
Well, I put
permit
in an
to go up
application
there.
for a driveway and it didn't get approved.
With who?
The city of Newcastle.
That's because where he was wanting to put it, Greg, was gonna cause a bigger problem. We suggested that he goes over on, was it G Avenue, Kenny?
I never got
Or
it.
H?
I didn't look at it. I think you and Matt had a look at it.
I think that's where we suggested because it was flatter and it wasn't banked to go in off the cross street instead of 20th Street.
What was it, a driveway to the house or
It
to
would
the
have
garage
been
or
a driveway that took it from the street to the lot.
to the back of the lot?
Well, actually, the front of it. See, what I intend to do with the corner lot is build a house there. So I needed to put a driveway so that I could access the street from both the alley.
Do you remember, did we need a curb
And the
cut
street.
or what?
Yes, that's what I asked for.
Yeah, Lee and Matt had a look at it. I don't,
There's actually an entrance, Greg, into his vacant lots off of the side street that goes up into his lot. We've seen it, Matt and I both saw that.
There is
So,
on the.
There's no reason to
on the
cause
north
a bigger
side.
problem with cutting an embankment down and causing maybe water problems or even creating a bigger parking problem when there's actually already an access into those vacant lots off of the side street.
Well, see, I'm thinking along the lines of the future. When I put the house up, it'll have a 3-car garage that faces north and a 3-car garage that faces west. That way I have.
How soon can you get that done?
Well,
I think we have to deal with the situation at hand, and what the problem is, and we have to get a solution to the problem immediately, not let the problem
3 or 4 or 5
continue.
years from now.
Not let the problem continue for 3 or 4 or 5 more years.
And I wholeheartedly
Yeah.
agree.
And,
I think the solution, a very reasonable solution would be for you guys to allow me to park my vehicles. And I understand that there are no residents there, so I don't, and I understand I don't own the street. And I don't act like I do, I don't pretend that I do. I've never called the police about where somebody parked their car, no matter where they park it. So, but if you can allow me, or arrange it, or do whatever it takes so that I can park my vehicles on the east side of the street, that will alleviate this problem.
Well, we're putting a limit, wasn't a limit of how many individual household could park at one time? Was that 2?
It's 2 per licensed resident. So if 2 people live in a resident, then they can have 2 vehicles per resident, so they can have 4 vehicles. So in his case, with the new ordinance, it'd be 2 vehicles he would be allowed to have.
Unless he goes out and gets him a girlfriend.
Well, that's true. And they have to be used, you know.
I use all of them. None of them.
Move.
The ones that aren't used are in the garage. I got a 57 Cadillac that's in the garage, that's a major restoration project, and a 74 Volkswagen I was talking about. They're both in the garage, so all of the cars that are parked on the street are cars that I can get in and drive off in at any given moment.
How many vehicles do you have on the road, whether, no matter what side of the road it's on right now? How many vehicles do you have sitting on the roadway?
5 or 6.
5 or 6?
Do you see where that could become a problem if everybody had 5 or 6 sitting out there?
Wow.
I mean, legally, right now, everybody could have 5 or 6 sitting out there. And so,
Well, actually, I'm not the only person on the block with multiple vehicles.
right, they would be affected by this as well.
Only not quite as bad as me. Because there are 2 of them that live in that house, and 1 of me that lives in my house. So it would have a greater impact on me than it would anybody else. So, is there anything that we can do to help me out with this issue?
Well, at this point in time, we haven't even voted on the new amendment, have we? I mean,
We're just on second reading right
on the
now.
second reading, but I mean,
But I mean, you know, I can understand that if I was parking in front of somebody's house that actually wanted to use the spaces where I'm parked, I'm basically using spaces where no vehicles were parked in before, with the exception of 1.
I feel like our point, our issue is to get those vehicles off the side of the road. That's why I'm suggesting if you could get a permit to put a driveway or a parking lot, whether it's next to your house or it's out closer to G Avenue. I'm saying but I think everybody wants to only have 2 vehicles on the road. I mean, so they vote on it tonight. You know, I don't know how they're gonna vote, but I think that's, from talking to the street department, the police department, I think our point is no matter who it is, we want everybody to be on the same page and have no more than 2 vehicles per people of licensed vehicles on the road.
I think that sums it up. I mean, I agree with you.
The driveway would take care of the situation. I have a neighbor had 6 cars that are on the driveway.
Would that be possible that you could?
Well, yeah, that's what I wanted to do. But again, I don't wanna waste money and have the driveway put by Avenue G when I'm gonna put a house there, and then I'd still need a driveway on 120 in the future. That's why I put in the driveway.
Can you put a driveway on the vacant lot that's next to your house?
That's what I'm
that
talking
keeps it
about.
closer to your.
That's what
closer to
I
your-
didn't think was the right place. I think it's correct. Right.
You got cut out through the hill, or it's got an
Yeah, it's
embankment?
got an embankment.
It's got an embankment on it, and we were gonna knock the embankment down so that I could drive right.
You gotta knock the embankment down, knock the embankment down.
Yeah.
I've seen that done before.
Yeah, it's done before. and
If I were you, I'd want to keep the cars closer to the house.
Exactly.
You to keep an eye on them yourself.
Well, I would have to I'd have to do a lot of work and set cameras up out there and stuff like that, because I'm never home.
Would there need to be a curb cut permit for that?
Yes.
So if you brought a plan in,
I did.
Well, he did, and it got turned down. Where we wanted to come off the 20th.
You gotta remember something, anytime you make if you go strictly by the ordinance, the code, anytime you have a driveway, You're supposed to have 15 feet on either side of that driveway where no one parks. So that was the other issue, because we were afraid that was even gonna create a bigger parking issue down there. Because no one down through there has a driveway, everybody parks on the street. And on the
But
opposite
he
side of the
owns
road.
the properties where all 15 of those feet would be on each side of that.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, Greg, you still have to, if you let him have a new driveway cut, okay, then I'm trying to think how to word this. It's gonna cause a bigger problem, because to me, knowing and Matt being down there and a couple other officers at different times, this is really a citizen's dispute constantly. Is that not right, Matt?
Correct.
Well,
And so I think when you add a driveway, you're gonna add even further, because on the other side of his side is 3 handicap signs. So in order to get 3 handicap signs in there, if you actually go by that ordinance, you have to go to the middle of that side, and you gotta go 20 feet on either side of that. So it's just been
If they just
it's been a mess.
off the alley. What the woman
There's room there.
What the one
There used to be one
that
there.
lives in 1409 stated was that, and we thought we had this resolved. She got a car parked in front of my house that's been there since the spring. They move it around, but they keep one of the spaces in front of my house blocked. She said she would move that car, that one car, park it in the back. If I moved all 3 of my cars off the west side of the street. So like you said, it's sort of a dispute, but I don't dispute with people, especially over parking spaces. Like I said, I've never called the police about where anybody parks their car, because I don't own the street. If she wants to park a vehicle in front of my house, that's fine, I don't have a problem with it.
Well, at this point in time, I think we need to figure out, Kenny, Matt, Lee, a way to get a driveway in there somehow. But
When we were talking about the cutout coming off 20th, and they're all fighting over all these parking spots. And literally, if you put a driveway coming in off of 20th, you're taking at least 4 of them away.
Yeah.
And there's already a problem down there.
You know,
He could park his cars, that whole stretch of G Avenue, there's not a single car parked on it from 20th over to 21st, not a single car parked down that side. Plus, you can get into the same lot from there, or you can get into the same lot from the alley, because I had to tow one of the cars that he had purchased but never got a title from, which was considered abandoned. We got a whole wrecker in there to get that car out. So, I think for the time being, I understand he doesn't want to spend the money putting the gravel in and putting the driveway in there. But if he's gonna build a house over there anyway, you said you're gonna have your garage facing north. That's where your driveway's gonna have to go in from anyway, is
Yeah,
G
I
Avenue.
would still look at people that,
I'm gonna cut this off, because that's neither here nor there on the discussion of whether we have 2 cars parked on the city street or more than that. And so, we're gonna vote,
I brought in some pictures.
okay, if you want to let your picture be passed around, that's
Yes,
good.
please.
But I think we've really exceeded the amount of time we should spend on this, talking about it, and we're gonna vote on tonight. It may get voted up, it may get voted down, but there'll be one more reading in 2 weeks as well, if you want to come back. If it does get passed tonight, you can come back and talk again.
Do I really want to come back here?
But all I'm saying is the way we're going right now, we'll continue to talk about this for another 15 or 20 minutes and be right at the same place we
Now,
are.
what I'm showing in those
So,
pictures, though, what I'm showing in those pictures is, some of those pictures show the spaces where my cars are parked now, that she's complaining about. And basically what she told me at one point is, you move 3 cars in exchange for me moving 1. And then she would stop calling the police on me and stop harassing me in every way she can imagine.
Well, that's a dispute between 2 citizens. I mean, that's between you and them. We'll all look at the pictures, but we've spent more than the amount of time we're supposed to spend in allowing for a community person to speak. And I think we have the gist of what you're saying. So, I think, you know, I appreciate you coming out. Thank you.
And we need to work on a solution, you get in the driveway or parking. Up there for the
Yeah,
future.
if this ordinance passed, something needs to be done. And now, what about extending the time to park?
We can't do that until we pass the ordinance.
Well,
So
so
that's-
now,
That's not part of this.
I understand that,
This-
but that's what I originally came in and asked for. It didn't have anything to do with whose cars would park where or anything else. But I'm an over-the-road truck driver, and I normally stay out for 2 to 3 months at a time.
Okay,
Right now.
We understand, and we understand you'd like to have maybe a variance or something, but this is not the place to get that.
So
But if we have an ordinance, and we
Well,
want a variance, and you're probably what the
Start
Board
out
of
with
Works, yeah.
BZA.
Have to become the building commission first, and then go through the process of getting a variance. I'm not saying you wouldn't get a variance, I don't know. But all I'm saying is that this is not the place, and we're not the group to give you that. So I appreciate your time. Okay. So now we'll move on to committee and council reports. Mr. Guffey.
I got just a thing on the ARP. Do we pay that out? How's that being paid out? Do we give it to the individual or do we give it to the vendor or?
The money stays with the city, okay? And then when a bill comes in, they bring it to the city, and then the city pays the bill. So for example, if Mike Guffey did work on a project for the city that was with ARP money, then when Mike Guffey turned the bill in, let's say it was my building, you were doing the painting on it, you gave me the bill, I would turn that into Brenda, she would pay the money out of the ARP. The money never goes actually into the hands of anybody that is, like a building owner or somebody like that. It goes directly from the ARP fund to whoever's doing the work.
The portion that's been approved. And just 'cause
It may be, maybe 100,000 approved and maybe 12,000 of it went for painting and that was, part of it.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I need to interrupt here because we have a couple.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please come forward, Scott. That was lengthy and I just
That's all right.
got off track.
I don't know where you are on the signal at Indiana and Maine for your discussion. I was going to give a little input on what I think of it.
Please.
The way it is now with the stop sign, when things aren't busy there, it goes fine. Things are fine. When things start getting busy certain times of day, with the 8-way stop in effect, you got a turning lane on each one, it becomes confusing for people. And I've stood on the corner, my frame shop's on the corner, so I stood there and watched a little bit. And I think if there's one spot in Newcastle that's going to keep a traffic light, that would be the logical spot, because that's the busiest corner I can see of the ones that the city maintains traffic light wise. If you were to take that out, I think you'd have to eliminate the turn lanes and make that just a 4-way stop. But
What do you consider a busy time, Scott?
it varies, but at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock
Okay.
are busy.
Yeah, okay.
School time maybe, around
And it is a little more difficult even for people to walk. They're walking along, headed uptown to try to get across that without a light. The light allows them that time where they're safely walking.
And I appreciate your point, because you're there, you see it. But for councilmen to vote with some knowledge on this, I mean, I go through that intersection probably a dozen times a day. And this evening, in fact, I was up there and it happened. I was on the intersection of 14th and Indiana and looked down and saw Councilman Guffey on the intersection of Main and Indiana. So I wanted to see traffic flow. I wanted to watch the light and the 4-way stop to see how it worked right there. And there was from about 10 to 5 to 5:20, so a half hour I watched there, and it was very, very busy. Probably the busiest I've ever seen. But to my surprise, it actually was smooth. I did learn some things. Traffic going east-west is 5 to 1, traffic going north-south. There's no question about that. And I actually saw times where the light at 14, when it was red, it backed up almost all the way to the entrance of Fred's Pharmacy, but the interchange at the four-way that we've got now, the temporary, was flowing. I mean, it was moving. And so, I mean, to me, what I witnessed, it was pretty smooth.
Would the thought be to eliminate the turn lanes if?
Would you have?
I think you have to.
Yeah.
The only concern I have, one is I got in the traffic thing, I have 6 cars behind, and to eliminate all 3, there's no main road that we have 3 stop signs, a block, a block, a block. The other thing is, I don't know if we need to have this conversation until school starts and see what role this plays. The school, people that are buses and kids and all that going to school and stuff. It starts in 3 weeks, and we probably ought to consider how that's going to affect that stop sign.
I would think no matter if we're gonna delay doing anything, I think we need to take those turn lanes out no matter what. And put them back if we keep the light. Because with turn lanes there, you've got an 8-way stop, and I just don't know that
I
that's
think the only way to do
very
it is they
safe.
got a stripe that everybody's used to.
Well,
To agree with you, whether there's a stoplight there or not, or a 6-way stop, if you're coming east and you get stopped, your bar, if you're gonna turn on Main Street and come north, your stop bar is way back there. And
You got a wall between you and the.
yeah, and you're looking head on to those headlights. That road really is not wide enough for turn lanes, especially if you're turning north on to Main Street. That car that's coming to the west, for a moment you're looking head on, and then he's got to get over. So I don't think that there should be turn lanes there myself.
Well, I have a guy that works over at Flower Shop, as well as a lady that lives near there and goes to the intersection every day. And they both expressed pretty much exactly the same sentiment that you have. Very, almost to a T.
With the exception of the bushes. And I said,
Yeah,
you might want to trim your bushes.
That's
Trim
it.
your bushes down a little bit.
Yeah, while I was sitting there today, that's what I observed, is the turn. Confuse people.
Yeah.
The other thing is, people have got to realize what a 4-way stop is too. Because it was.
I just say that.
But the turn lanes, I think,
Yeah.
that is confusing to some people.
I'm gonna say, if you want to put an officer there, you could write tickets just one after another. People just roll up there and ignore the stop bar, or
Right.
don't even stop.
I observed that also, there was 2 city cops came by and everybody.
Well, that's true.
Played good.
That's true.
From the
Most stop signs.
intersection.
I'm a meeting behind, so I apologize, but we are trying to eliminate just a light for cost savings, or?
No, cost savings has nothing to do with it.
Okay.
They're outdated, and we can't,
Right.
if we replace that light, it has to be a new light, and the other 2 at 14th and at 15th are outdated. So do you replace all 3 of them? I think it's absolutely silly to have a 3-way stop at the post office. I think we could put stop signs up there. I mean,
I agree with that. That's what I was
I
gonna
think
say
you're
at
right.
this
Just
point.
stop on Church Street, and the other be.
well, really, it could be a 4-way stop.
Could be
For
4-way,
the
3-way.
driveway coming out of
2-way.
Maplewood. You know, that should be a stop. Their driveway should be a stop also. So that, we're calling it a 3-way, but that really should be a 4-way also.
Well, that was gonna be, my recommendation was to pull that light of any of them in that area. The people I've heard from have expressed concern about taking all those lights out, based on the newspaper article that ran. So I had not thought about that light just because it hadn't been an issue. I know we changed it at the time when 14th was closed, and haven't really revisited, but that was gonna be my recommendation. I also don't know where we need to go from here. Does the traffic committee take it? We need to have a recommendation, because I don't want this to drag out.
Well, we don't either, because you know more here, so that's why
So
we're
this is
talking
it.
about it more than
Yeah.
that.
But the school's a good point. I mean, there's nothing saying it has to be done tonight.
Right.
The statement that was made, and it's the true statement, it costs $20 per bulb every time it goes out, and we seem to have trouble with 15 all the time. Don't know why we have to go to 15 and change bulbs so often. The bolt pattern that's in the ground now, for one, that's gone, it would consist of a 3-foot round hole, 8 foot deep, so we've got to change those sidewalks there anyway, make them handicap accessible. They're in terrible shape on all 4 corners, not just that one corner, on all 4 corners. So there's a lot to do there, and no one with financing, but
Yeah.
I kind of agree with Lynn. I've got a green light, and then get to the next light, and it's red, and
Right.
traffic starts backing up. I think it helps the flow the whole way if it's a stop sign.
Well, those are local lights, so can we program, if a bulk of the traffic is going, I think you said east and west, can we time those lights a little better to where east and west, it flows pretty
You
quickly?
can try.
You can time it from one
You can try.
direction.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If it-
well, yeah, right, well, it'd be 2
The
directions,
other
right,
direction.
yeah, right. So,
Thanks, Scott. Thank you. Valerie?
I just have one question though. I know you guys talked at the last meeting about the possibility of the solar type light that flashes for the stop sign. I don't know if that's something you want to look at temporarily until school starts. I'm notorious in Shirley of almost running that stop sign continually until they put that flasher up, and it just alerts me more. Because I've had a couple friends talk to me that they are avoiding that intersection. And last week, one of my friends had somebody run it on them, so that might help with the visual. That's my only thought.
Well, we put not a neon, but what do you call them?
Reflector.
Reflector. So your lights will, of a night, it will show up 5 times brighter than it was, but of a day, it spins and it catches your attention, so, yeah, there's things that can be done.
Just put that up.
Okay. Well, when we get to the point where we discuss it a little more and see what we actually want to do. Okay, Mr. Guffey, were you done?
Yeah.
And Mr. Hancock?
Just meet the traffic committee after the meeting for just 10 minutes.
Mr. Walden?
I was going to say something about the turn lanes there at the intersection, so I guess we don't have to do that now. Being away on vacation last week, we lost a really good person, Miss Miller, over on Washington Street and 25th Street. He's kind of my eyes and ears for Osborne Park. He's a good man, and very respectful, and learned a lot from him since I've grown to know him here the last 8 years. So I just want to give condolences to his family. He's an interesting person. Still feel like I have sand under my feet right now, but got to spend a week and a half with grandkids, so I'm a little worn out from that. But good to be back home. So that's all.
Thanks. Mr. Dickon?
Talking time capsule, trying to finalize that. So if the city has anything specific they would like to put in, or if anybody really has anything they want to put in, I'm going to try to organize a way for the public to, share a note or something, because I think that was done last time, though we can't really tell. So just keep that in mind. If you guys have anything, you can send it my way or contact me. The other thing,
Have you picked a deadline date yet?
no, I hate deadlines.
Sometimes it's 50 years.
Yeah,
it's
50 years. That's why I'm trying to, I don't want a deadline because I want to make sure we do it right. And I know we've talked about that. And I know there's some things that need included that I haven't received yet. So it'd probably be August, September is my loose timeline, if that helps. The only other thing that I wanted to ask about, I've kind of been poking around, and I need to get with a contractor here that was recommended to me about the Murphy building, to make sure it's structurally, set. But then also was going to ask him about the EMS building. I know the county owns that. I know we've had barrels for about a year. From the questions I've asked of who I think is the right people, that doesn't necessarily release liability from the county. If I were to be walking under it, because it is open, and get hit in the head with a brick, that'd be the county's liability. And same if I was stopped at that light and the wall fell. So at this point, I know we've worked with them multiple times. I know they've put that out to bid and got no bids, and they're looking at handling it another way. I know that, I think Pam, that owns the White Rabbit building, had her facade stabilized before she did some work on it. I think something needs to be done there. And I know our hands are kind of tied because it's not our building, but it's also in our jurisdiction, to where maybe we can cite them or work with them more directly. But, with everything that everybody is investing in downtown, it's not just us that's doing the investing. I just hate that that's right there as you're coming into town. And I don't think it's really necessarily doing anything for us. Just some thoughts. I know the ordinance allows the Historic Preservation Commission to, have the building inspector cite somebody. And I don't necessarily think we need to, show our teeth fully, but we need to do something rather than just sit with our hands in our pocket.
Well, it's not we, it's the county.
Yeah, right. But I mean, how long would we give them until, it would, I guess my question would be, if we had somebody from the public sitting in the back with a building like that, would they have a year with barrels to, give them time to do something at this point?
Well, I think the next step would be that the building department would say, this is a hazard, because it truly is.
Right.
I mean, it's recoverable.
Yeah.
But it truly is a hazard. And they are sent a certified letter saying that they've got X amount of days to do something with it, or it needs to be demoed.
Right.
I talked to, I think his name, the artist commissioner.
Tarantino.
Yeah, he had it out for bid, and I think in August, for 60 days, and I think the time's up in August. I did tell him that we'd be contacting him at the end of that 60 days.
Okay. And like I said, I mean, we've got resources, and I've worked with them directly to, and it's not the current administration's fault either. I mean,
The city RDC paid to have both buildings appraised.
Right.
And they didn't want to participate with us.
Right.
And so they wanted to do it on their own. And now supposedly they have an offer on the annex, and they're still have orange barrels across the street. So we've tried to engage with them.
No, I know we have. And that's, like I said, I know our hands are tied to a certain extent. I appreciate that. I mean, that's good information to have. So, I mean, I think we're doing as much as we can. The only other thing, too, now that I've jotted it down in the wrong section of my notes, can we refer, and this is probably a Joel question, can we refer citizens to the city court for mediation? Like this
mediation, like
if there is a dispute that is not reachable, I mean, is that a step that can be taken? Obviously, you can't force anybody to do that.
Just as a civil.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a civil matter, and the
case.
city court generally handles just violations of the city code.
Okay.
So, yeah, no, that probably wouldn't be anything you could necessarily refer to city court.
Okay, just something I jotted down and wondered. That's all I have.
Valerie, did you have something to say
I
about
think I
that?
can safely say for the historical commission, we don't want to see the building demolished. Our purpose is to maintain and,
Right.
keep that historical purpose. So we just would really hate to see it demolished.
It used to be a church. I mean, there's a lot of history behind that building, isn't there, Mike?
Yeah.
Scott? I agree.
Yeah, I don't think anybody wants to see it gone. I mean, lots of things. I know I did, I'm sure. Bader's been in that building when they were younger and everything. You don't want to see it go.
Aaron, preservation of what you're going to put in the next 50-year time capsule, has that been considered from what?
Yeah. So I shared a photo of it on Facebook. They've relocated it's got to be early 1900s, like a bank vault safe. It's large. They've moved it out under the main staircase. Looks really nice because of the time period. So I mean, given how high that ground level of the courthouse is, and that it's inside, this, bank vault, I think that's pretty good preservation. I don't know that it's airtight. It's one thing we're going to look at, but it should be significantly better improvements than the last one.
And since we're talking about the county, is there any way we could get them to mow the grass from the old jail?
I already talked to him about that.
It's,
Yeah, we've talked to the commissioners, I've talked to Jeff Malakir.
they've gotten the outside grass, but inside that.
Jerry, what they said was that Constantine wire that's on the inside, there's only 2 people in the whole state of Indiana for the state. They can take that down and handle it properly. And he's out with COVID. It has been now for over a month. And they're waiting on him to come and take the Constantine wire down and cut the grass on the inside.
I think they've just got that top wire now. They were taking it down today.
So,
Thanks, Ed.
Okay. Is that it, Eric?
Yeah, thanks.
Mr. Coger?
One thing I'd like to be seen done is, those political campaign signs popping up. I believe it's 60 days prior to the election that they can put out. If we could, I don't know, it's not really our obligation to, the election board needs to send out a reminder to these candidates that it's 60 days prior.
There's a size limit and the footage off the main road.
I mean, they're starting to pop up a little, and they're in the city limits, so if we could keep an eye on that. Okay. Yeah, that's all.
Okay, Mr. Pruitt?
I have nothing this time.
Okay, I've got 2 or 3 things. First thing, could we send a letter to the railroad there, people on the railroad there along Cherrywood and ask them to mow, take care of their weeds and instruct them that if they don't, we will send them the bill.
They don't own very much of it anymore. Is part of that ours?
We mow all the church, but we don't mow the, obviously the tracks, and that's where all the weeds are at.
Right, that's what I'm talking about.
It only goes up the track will go up 1 block or 2 blocks? Or the actual track? It's like 5.
Speaking of those tracks, I drove through New Lisbon the other day, and they paved over the New Lisbon Railroad tracks.
Saw that.
I was gonna ask.
So that means
Dave
ours is done, right?
No.
I can't get here.
I was gonna ask Dave.
All right.
He has to repair a trestle out
They said
there.
they let the rail cars.
He's got a trestle that's
The
completely
county just
fell
paved right
in. They
over it.
paved right over it down.
down.
Yeah, you got a trestle that's broken.
I mean, you know what they have?
You can't get down anyway.
Can we send
Okay, I did, yeah. Sorry. I just remember, you
Because,
come
if they don't want to trade here. The other thing, these 2 kind of somewhat go along together. Had a lot of, the most complaints I've got lately, I got a lot of calls on the stop signs, but had to do, and when I say this, talking about the top half of the Jennings building, not the bottom half the mayor owns, okay? But, and I believe, I think, Matt, you might concur, but the police are spending a lot of time at the Jennings building and at the 1400 Plaza, if they're near the Jennings building, am I right?
We've had several calls of the
Yeah.
apartments of the 1400, the Jennings building.
And I've gotten reports of people living there, of 7 or 8 people living in a studio apartment. They claim that drug use is pretty rampant, selling of drugs. It just seems like we need to clean that up. I mean, I think somebody that wants to hopefully one day fill your part of the building probably ain't gonna want to feel too bad with the way things are around there right now. And I'd just like to see what we can do to, I don't know if we could eventually file cite the building owner for maintaining a public nuisance. Not exactly sure what our legal recourse is, but I think that needs to improve there and improve pretty drastically. Another thing somebody mentioned was the curfew. There's been more vandalism, and of course we've had some different situations involving kids that really shouldn't be where they're at that time. And can we maybe go for a 2 or 3 week crackdown on curfew violation? Sure. I just think that might help get some of these people off the street, maybe. And if they know we're doing it, maybe their parents will take a little bit of responsibility, and it might help cut down some of the junk that's going on. So, otherwise, that's all I've got, Your Honor, and I'll turn it over to you.
What is our
curfew now, 10 o'clock for underage,
Well, for them,
11 for teenagers?
or, I think it's 16 and below, and it's, 1 o'clock on weekends.
Why do you suggest 10 o'clock?
Well, I mean, it just enforce what we've got probably will help us a lot. I mean, I don't know if we need to go about changing the rules necessarily, but it doesn't hurt them.
We will have to go by the state statute.
Yeah, that's fine.
What, at any certain place, like, are you talking about like at the courts?
Well,
plaza?
the courts and the skate park and the plaza and just out and about. I mean, you'll see kids walking, you know, I mean, it seems like you'll see kids walking out and about later than probably what they ought to be. And if they're doing that, there's a chance that, I mean, they're kids. We were kids once, you can get into some mischief if you're out.
Scares me to see 3 or 4 little boys and 1 little girl with them.
Mm-hmm.
Scares me to death.
So just, I mean, it just wouldn't hurt to, and I think we probably do a lot of that already, but this would hurt stop and kind of check on them, say, well, I've already know.
No, I agree.
Scurry them home.
Kids would appreciate that too. They like that adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
I think you remember that. Your face just turned off. Must be a star or 2 there.
Just a few.
Anything, Chief?
Okay, well, we'll just keep moving.
The only thing I've got is, I'm going to be shorthanded for a little while. We've lost 3 retirements, and then, we're sending 1 down to the schools full-time. I got 1 trying to get hired right now, as soon as we get back with the perf. Outside of that, that's the only one I've left on the list. But we are starting a process this week. It's going to take a little bit to get back up.
Okay. Chief? Okay. All right.
I noticed they got State Road 38 West closed now with the bridge. They're going to take it out. It'll be closed all the way up to November. So we've got everything blocked all over town, don't we, boss?
Feels like it.
Or the state does, anyway.
Yeah.
It's gonna be nice when it's finished.
What's that?
It's gonna be nice when it's finished.
That's right. That's right.
That's the motto. That's the good enough motto.
Absolutely.
Anything else?
I've got a mess in front of my house right now. It's gonna be nice when it's.
It'll be nice when it's done.
Council? Kendra? Anything, Lee?
No, other than just that spinner is roughly $95, $89 to $95 on the stop sign. I checked on the flashing stoplights, and the stoplights are anywhere from $900, $99 all the way up to $2,900, depending on how elaborate you want to make a solar flashing stoplight, so, or stop sign. So.
Okay. Well, the only thing I want to add is this, I don't want to do anything with these stoplights too soon. I would rather if we did order a new stoplight for Bain, it's probably going to take months to get it here anyway.
Yeah.
So I would rather that you talk to your constituents, and I'm kind of surprised that everybody's on the same page about that there's really no room for turn lanes, because I truly don't think there's room for turn lanes there, but I think we don't need to make a snap decision on that we need to take our time and do it right, and make sure it's sufficient. That's all I have.
Okay. Now we'll move on to new business. I'm just going to make a motion that we take out the turn lanes at the intersections. I don't know if they're at all the intersections. Do these, any of the intersections along Indiana or across Indiana, we take out the turn lanes? In other words, I can't remember if 15 has one or not. But anyway, we make those at least especially Maine, which has this 4-way stop now. We'll just deal with Maine right now, but we'll make that intersection a true 4-way stop and then take out the turn lanes.
We need to strike that so people.
Stripe, yes.
Yeah, once the striper would be.
He was out of town last week, and his guy should have been in here last week. They got pulled off, so I'm hoping to see him this week. I'll give him another call tomorrow to see where he's at.
So they're gonna freshen up around the schools? Are they gonna freshen up around the schools, crosswalks, stop bars, that stuff?
Well, if you look on some of the state roads, they've done a terrible job. They drip their white paint to the
I've
next.
seen some
and
that have curves in it.
that's not Dave's guys, that's not us, that's.
I think the state used their own vehicles instead of hiring it out to a striping company. They spilled a lot of that thermoplastic all over the place.
Okay, so I made a motion to get rid of basically the turn lanes at Indiana and Main Street.
Is this temporary?
Well, until we have a chance to make a permanent decision.
I think
Because we
Maine,
probably need to give, like, it was suggested, it wouldn't hurt to wait till after school started, so probably, you know, the last meeting in August or first meeting in September, we could look at making a permanent decision on what's gonna happen there with that. But that's not neither here nor there on that motion.
Would you consider just making it permanent?
I'd rather for us wait, just, you know.
So everything plays out.
Because even if we go to a light there, eventually, I think the turn lane is not a good thing simply because of how far back it is and how narrow that area is anyway. And there's plenty of room once you get up in the intersection. If you went to a light and the light was green, there's plenty of spot pull up there because the car behind you pull around. Yeah. So, no, I'm just making a motion to remove those turn lanes at that intersection as soon as possible.
When they come in and do those, that must be the number one priority, to get that Maine and Indiana
I will,
and all that,
yeah.
because nobody will know and all that. until-
So will anybody second that?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay. So is there any more discussion on it?
The only other thing is traffic committee, suggest putting up, you guys said east to west on Indiana is obviously more busy. Putting a stop ahead sign up,
Yeah.
coming up Indiana,
Right.
at least coming up Indiana. Yeah. Because you're pretty slow
Yeah.
coming,
Right.
going west, going
Yeah.
east. Like stop ahead, you know, like how many ever feet you do that.
Question on that, Mark, do you want it to say stop ahead?
I
or do
mean,
you want
whatever
to-
you think.
Well, the reason is they have a bilingual,
If you got one sitting down there that you can use.
I do not. I can get one, I mean, I'll have to order it.
Okay. Well, I
But
mean,
they
just-
recommend now, because of all the foreign people in that can't speak English very well, that you actually go with the picture of a stop
Picture of a
sign
stop
with an
sign.
arrow, if that's.
Whatever works.
That-
I mean, I was a suggestion of the traffic committee, so if you want to throw that in.
Any other discussion? Can we move and second it? Let's vote on that, please.
Mike Duffy,
Aye.
Jeff Hancock, Jerry Walden,
Aye.
Aaron Dickens.
Aye.
Mark Covert.
Aye.
Lynn Purdue.
Aye.
Rex Spector.
Aye. Okay. Now we're going to move on to resolutions. The first resolution is authorizing the allocation of coronavirus local fiscal recovery funds for the provision of specified government services and further amending the city's written plan for expenditure. Now therefore be it resolved by the Common Council of the City in Newcastle, Indiana as follows. One, the Common Council hereby allocates a sum of $10,724.16 for the acquisition and installation of salt spreader, salt box in a vehicle used by the street department for spreading salt. I move we pass this resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Just like to add this replacement of the vehicle apparatus that we lost last year and had that replaced.
And I want to give Lee and the street department credit for getting a nice truck. It's going to be very useful and everything. We saw it outside after the meeting last time. I think it's going to be a great addition. So it's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote on 22-1.
Mike Duffy.
Aye.
Jeff Hancock.
Aye.
Jerry Walden.
Aye.
Aaron Dickens.
Aye.
Mark Covert.
Aye.
Lynn Purdue.
Aye.
Rick Spector.
Aye. Okay, now we'll move on to resolution number 07182022-2, authorizing the allocation of coronavirus local fiscal recovery funds for the provision of specified government services and further amending the city's written plan for expenditure. This is for demolition of structures. Now therefore be resolved by the Common Council of the City of Newcastle, Indiana as follows. One, the Common Council hereby allocates an additional sum of $50,000 for the demolition of vacant and substandard structures located within the city. I move we pass this resolution.
Second.
Any discussion? This is in addition to the $50,000 that we already allocated that I think the use most of already.
Kenny, do you have some targeted structures?
Yes. We've got two in the works coming down, we've got one down, and the old block building on 18th Street, we're going to try to work on Joel's going to have to do some window work on that, we're going to take that now. I do have a price on it.
Before it falls in the middle of the street?
Yeah.
Either one of the street.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Mike Duffy.
Aye.
Jeff Hancock.
Aye.
Jerry Walden.
Aye.
Aaron Dickens.
Aye.
Mark Covert.
Aye.
Glenn Purdue.
Aye.
Brett Spector.
Aye. Next is Resolution 071-82022-3, authorizing the allocation of coronavirus local fiscal recovery funds for the provision of specified government services and further amending the city's written plan for expenditure. And this is for the parking lot of the municipal building. Now therefore be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of Newcastle, Indiana as follows. The Common Council hereby allocates a sum of $80,000 for the resurfacing and repair of parking lot at the municipal building. That's the parking lot out back. I move we pass this resolution.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Mike Duffy.
Aye.
Jeff Hancock.
Aye.
Jerry Walden. Aaron Dickens.
Aye.
Mark Covert.
Aye.
Glenn Purdue.
Aye.
Brett Spector.
Aye. Okay. Resolution 071-82022-4. This is authorizing the allocation of coronavirus local fiscal recovery funds for the provision of specified government services and further amending the city's written plan for expenditure. This is for garage doors for the back of the municipal building. The Common Council hereby allocates a sum of $10,500 for the replacement of garage doors at the municipal building. I move we pass this resolution.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Mike Duffy.
Aye.
Jeff Hancock. Jerry Walden.
Aye.
Aaron Dickens.
Aye.
Mark Covert.
Aye.
Glenn Purdue.
Aye.
Brett Spector.
Aye. Next we go to ordinances. We're on second reading for ordinance 3883. This is the ordinance regulating the number of vehicles that may be parked on city streets by a common owner or by occupants of the same household. I move that we pass this ordinance on second reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion on this?
I just got one thing.
Okay.
So you can park from 20th to 21st on these, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Any more discussion? Okay, hearing none. Roll call vote, please.
Mike Duffy.
Aye.
Jeff Hancock.
Aye.
Jerry Walden.
Aye.
Aaron Dickens.
Aye.
Mark Covert.
Aye.
Glenn Purdue.
Aye.
Brett Spector.
Aye. Okay, that takes us to ordinance 3884. That's amending ordinance 3873, and that was the overtime pay for policemen. And that, Chief Schofield, and I'm going to move we pass that on second reading. Okay, a second.
Second.
Okay, Chief Schofield, would you comment on how that works? It's a grant, correct? It's
Yeah.
not like a pay raise. It's
You've probably seen where Operation Pullover, we're about to have for seatbelt and DUI enforcement. We get a grant from the Indiana Criminal Justice Institute every year. And there for a while, we were up over $100-some thousand. And normally we pay time and a half. But with all this off-duty overtime, paying $50, $65, nobody's working the Operation Pullover, which keeps your guys in town, patrol more in town, looking for DUIs and seatbelt violations, stuff like that. So when we don't use that grant, we have to refund the money back to the state. next year, we've received less grant money. So we thought, well, if we could somewhat match what the off-duty people are paying, we could get more of that money used up, keep our people here working. It's basically essentially an off-duty gig, work, you know, but it keeps the people here rather than letting them go out and just sit on the road making $50 an hour. So basically, we don't want to lose the grant money. We want to use it, and this way it will encourage more officers to come out and work operation for us.
Just wanted to have a chief comment on that so that, well, we don't want other city workers and employees feeling like we gave the police department a raise and they didn't get one, but in fact, it comes from the state.
It's nothing to do with the salary budget of the police department.
Right.
It's all a state grant, which comes from the federal government.
Just wanted to clarify that for the record. Okay, any other discussion on that? It's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote.
Mike Duffy.
Aye.
Jeff Hancock. Jerry Walden. Henry Jenkins. Mark Hobart. Lynn Purdue. Rex Beckman.
Aye.
We can suspend those rules and move forward on that since it's second reading, so I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for 3884.
Second. Okay, we moved and seconded to suspend the rules. Roll call vote.
Mike Duffy.
Aye.
Jeff Hancock.
Aye.
Jerry Walden. Henry Jenkins.
Aye.
Mark Hobart. Lynn Purdue. Rex Beckman.
Aye.
I'd like to make a motion for 3884, third reading.
Okay, second. Any discussion? Been moved and seconded to pass 3884 on third reading. Roll call vote.
Mike Duffy.
Aye.
Jeff Hancock.
Aye.
Jerry Walden. Henry Jenkins.
Aye.
Mark Hobart. Lynn Purdue. Rex Beckman.
Aye. That concludes the business. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Well, there is one thing I want to say with the shootings last night in Beach Grove and Greenwood. You know, we had a teenage shooting here, was it a week ago Monday, May?
Yeah.
A week ago Monday. And it could have stemmed from 3 weeks ago at Baker Park, and might have carried over last Monday to Osborne Park, and then ended up at a gas station. Number one, I'm very fortunate that we didn't have a death. You know, first teenage shooting that I've ever known for us to have in Newcastle. We don't want it to happen anymore, but Mike and Patty and I met with a guy a month or so ago about updating cameras in the parks. And we still need to get cameras in the cemetery. I feel like we've talked about, I'm gonna put a map together that we need to get camera updated. I don't feel like we are. We got a lot to do and a lot to get approved on where to place them. The park board will have a lot to do that about the parks, but we still have complaints at the cemetery. But we should have cameras at the plaza. We should probably have a camera that faces the arts park, the arts center. So I think we need to do our due diligence and move forward with some cameras. So that's going to come up in the near future, I think. Although, I will say at the pool, we've had officers, I've seen at the Fort Hood Plaza at the weekend events, we've had officers, and I feel like having the police officers there at the time of the event helps, but I still think that we need to get cameraed and help ourselves, you know, enter into the future. So we don't have to, man, we should have done that. So that conversation is going to come up here in the near future. Patty, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I do. 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, the cameras at the skate park, they did help, correct, Matt?
Oh, absolutely.
And at this time, we're looking at new cameras and adding to our cameras, but we are not canceling ASI because they helped and they got, Mike and I went back as soon as someone notified us and we saw it going down from those cameras. so.
Well, and this is not my world, but I mean, each police officer, each of you guys could put this on your iPhone and you could watch it. You could check a certain camera any time of day or not.
Yeah, it's the future. It's what we need. I mean, well, it's really not the future. It's already happening. We need to catch up.
Yeah, and actually, the chief of police from Greenwood said that they checked the mall cameras and knew immediately exactly what was happening, how it happened. The hero, the 22-year-old hero that did civilian that pulled a gun and shot the killer, took him out within 2 minutes of the time that he started shooting. So, we've got to move forward. And unless anybody else has anything else to say about that, that's all I have.
Motion to adjourn?